So I'm going to briefly summarize this paper that just came out on how a hurricane affected the ecology and then how the rhesus macaques responded to this perturbation, which is a nice follow-up to the previous paper which looked at the past frequency of disturbances and how it affected the human response in terms of resistance and resilience after experiencing frequent disturbances. Under climate change, it's been very important and interesting to look at how quickly evolutionary responses happen, whether it's genotypic or phenotypic becomes an issue, whether there is a change in the genetic structure of the species, or is it just a response in terms of a different frequency of existing genes, so environmental response in terms of just phenotypic response. So this is ecological disturbance alters the adaptive benefits of social ties. So people have looked at cichlids in Lake Victoria, urban sparrow, many examples of trying to understand how quickly species respond to chronic changes like warming and habitat loss and various other things. So here extreme weather events radically alter ecosystems. When ecological damage persists, selective pressures on individuals can change, leading to phenotypic adjustments. So this is a response with existing genes. For group living, response to environmental perturbations. For group living animals, social relationships may be a mechanism enabling adaptation to ecosystem disturbance. Yet, whether such events alter selection on sociality and whether group living animals can, as a result, adaptively change their social relationships remains untested. We leveraged 10 years of data collected on rhesus macaques before and after a Category 4 hurricane caused persistent deforestation, exacerbating monkeys' exposure to intense heat. In response, macaques demonstrated persistently increased tolerance and decreased aggression toward other monkeys, facilitating access to scarce shade critical for their thermoregulation. Social tolerance predicted individual survival after the hurricane but not before it, revealing a shift in the adaptive function of sociality. So they have data before and after the hurricane, and before there was plenty of shade, there was no competition for shade, so social tolerance was based on other factors, but after the hurricane, shade became a critical resource which was limited, and macaques had to adjust their behavior and become more tolerant and less aggressive and so on. So I'll just skip all the figures. They are kind of complicated, showing the data in various ways with how group interaction, sociality, etc. are measured. It's an interesting paper. You definitely want to read if you want more details. I'm just following up on the previous paper to add one more point in the modern context along the same direction of how disturbances affect us. With the intensifying climate crisis, extreme weather events are expected to become less predictable and increase in both frequency and force. These events can cause sustained destruction of an existing ecosystem, depleting resources and degrading infrastructure upon which humans and other animals depend. Persistent ecosystem modifications may then alter the selective pressures exerted on individuals living within them, which can over time enforce phenotypic changes. Group living animals may cope with environmental upheavals by adaptively changing their patterns of social interactions, yet whether natural disturbances can alter selective pressures on patterns of social interaction by changing the costs and benefits experienced by individuals, and whether group living animals can adaptively modify their social relationships as a result remain untested. The lack of empirical evidence on this topic arises from the difficulty of studying behavioral responses to extreme and unpredictable events that cannot be reproduced in the laboratory, and from the rarity of long I skipped a little bit there, so let me just complete that. When I do cut and paste, sometimes I displace it, so let me just pull it up and read it or add it. Sorry about that. Okay, so hurricanes and macaques. Here we go. So where did I put that little piece of text? I somehow shifted it. Doing it in real time. So there was a little bit of text here, just 2 lines. So get rid of this, bring up this. I think you can see. So the rarity of long-term demographic data required to capture fitness and consequences for biological traits. I know I cut this text and I pasted it somewhere, except I misplaced it. So yeah, so I will adjust the PPT after the recording, but you get the point. So jumping ahead, what happened after the disturbance then? Shade became a scarce and critical resource after Hurricane Maria. This is jumping ahead. It's a 2017 hurricane that did serious damage to the ecosystem in which the rhesus macaques lived. On the basis of evidence showing increased competition when resources are scarce or monopolizable, we predicted that after the hurricane, rhesus macaques, who are widely regarded as among the most despotic of primate species, would display lower social tolerance and more frequent aggression. Previously, we reported that instead of becoming less pro-social, macaques on Cayo Santiago drastically increased their tolerance for other monkeys in the year after Hurricane Maria. Remarkably different than what you would expect. Those results led us to hypothesize that increased social tolerance was an adaptive response. Monkeys were using their social networks to access now scarce shade, critical for coping with the exacerbated heat stress. In the current study, we tested this hypothesis and predicted that changes in social structure would persist and would have direct fitness consequences. We tested these predictions using 10 years of behavioral and demographic data from before and after the hurricane, which is shown in the figures. What happened? Social tolerance actually increased and aggression decreased up to 5 years after Hurricane Maria. So it wasn't just a quick adjustment and then the despotic behavior started again. To assess the long-term impacts of Hurricane Maria on social relationships, we used behavioral data collected during a 10-year period before and after the event. So pre-hurricane years of 2013 to 2017 and post-hurricane years of 2018 to 2022, excluding 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which affected everything. So this was done in 7 distinct social groups, so sampling is very good. A total of 790 different adult individuals with behavioral data before and or after Hurricane Maria were included in this analysis. Our analysis focused on relationships in which partners spent time in close proximity to each other. Whether pairs of individuals tolerate being close to each other is an active choice that is repeatable and indicates an affiliative relationship between them. So it can be observed and quantified. For these reasons, proximity is used to quantify social structure in primates. Indeed, proximity in close space is tightly linked to resource sharing, such as shades. Macaques that do not wish to share a resource do not tolerate others in close proximity. Reduced aggression between individuals in close proximity further indicates social tolerance, so we also quantified changes in aggression. So, jumping ahead to the results, we found that monkeys were persistently more tolerant of others in their vicinity and less aggressive for up to 5 years after Hurricane Maria. Relationships based on social tolerance became more numerous and predicted individual survival after the storm, especially during the hottest hours of the day. These findings support our hypothesis that adaptive benefits of social tolerance are linked to accessing a thermoregulating resource, shade, in response to increased heat stress. Monkeys were not simply being passively squeezed into now limited shaded spaces, but instead showed a generalized increase in social tolerance, so it was a choice, including outside thermoregulatory contexts. So the behavior extended outside as well, suggesting a fundamental change in how they engaged with others. Notably, social tolerance did not predict survival before the hurricane, demonstrating that hurricane-induced drastic changes in ecological pressures altered the benefits individuals gain from social relationships. These results show that an extreme climatic event and its aftermath altered selective pressures on a social phenotype and identify ecosystem fluctuations as potential evolutionary drivers of sociality in group living animals. There are some more details on how this all happened, but basically this study provides a rare evidence of an abrupt change in selection on sociality in the face of a large and persistent ecological disturbance. So hurricane came, which is an acute stressor, but it made changes in ecology with deforestation that was a persistent perturbation or disturbance. These findings show the potential of social flexibility to provide resilience to rapid and unpredictable environmental fluctuations in animals and emphasize a dynamic link. I'm reading evolution, so I say empathize. Emphasize a dynamic link between the environment and fitness consequences of social behavior. So everybody benefits when cooperation and social tolerance goes up. So let me just read the formal definition of phenotypic so that my intuitive kind of explanation of how to think about it is made more scientific. Okay, so phenotypic, this is used extensively. Phenotypic refers to the observable characteristics of an organism, including its physical traits, behavior, and developmental processes. The term can also refer to a distinct variant of an organism's phenotypic characteristic called a phenotypic trait. Traits can be inherited or environmentally determined, or usually a combination of both. So you have vertical learning from inherited characteristics, and how they behave in response to environmental disturbance is what we are looking at as a phenotypic response. So it can be measured as opposed to genetic, where you have to go and do actual analysis of the genes, whereas phenotypic is observable in this sense. Okay, so let's leave it here, but it's a good addition to the previous podcast on how disturbances affect our social behavior, and frequent disturbances can translate then into increased resistance and resilience, as we saw in the previous podcast. Okay, that's interesting, cute story.